evening, everyone. I think they just took our view away, but you'll have great things to look at. I'm Susan Musinski. I'm the Executive Director of the Social Innovation Forum, and we're so thrilled that you are here in person. It has been a long, long road. Some of you know that I just returned from a 3-month sabbatical, and it's especially great to be back and to be in person in this community. Even though we don't have 400 people, we have a real crowd here. You are really here with us in so many ways. And it's great after the years we've been through, knowing that we're not even done, to actually be back in person, that I think people need the in-person contact and the connection and the community. And that's a huge piece of what SIF is and what this is about. And you're in for a treat tonight to meet these innovators.
Hello, I'm Tony Howland, and I'm the SIF Board Chair. I too am delighted to be here with all of you. It's great to see people face to face. I want to share a couple of thanks tonight to so many who have helped to make this evening happen. To our track partners, my fellow board members, event sponsors, and to the more than 100 volunteers who've helped out in so many ways to keep our community thriving and evolving. I also want to give a special shout out to the SIF team. Not only during Susan's sabbatical did they keep the lights on, they've made some substantive changes to the innovator process for the coming years. Specifically, as part of our DEI commitment, they've worked closely with some of the past innovators to make the SIF process more transparent and equitable for those nonprofit organizations. But before we launch tonight's program, I would like for us to look back and acknowledge what has happened to all of us and to the broader community we are part of since we were last together 2 years ago. It's been a really hard stretch, not only because of COVID, but for all the other world and national events we've had to live through. Our heroes have been those who show compassion, empathy, and those who've jumped in to help. However, for more than a few of us, it's been an unbearable time to be alive. So before I turn it back to Susan, please join me in a moment of silence to remember and honor all the lives that were lost and all those who continue to be impacted by these horrible events. Susan.
When I was away on my sabbatical, I was able to reflect on what the SIF community really encapsulates. Our community is a place of convening and connecting. It's a place of partnership, especially for nonprofit leaders who have so much to teach and to share. It's a place of learning and engagement, especially for funders who want to have an opportunity to kind of learn and grow and shift and change. And it's a place to gather, like we're doing tonight, and to connect. And in a world that's struggling, as Tony mentioned, with so many social issues, including racial inequity, social unrest, and our basic human rights, it's a tough place. And as white leaders in this organization, Tony and I acknowledge that it's especially important that we work on these challenges every single day. Our vision here tonight and in this work is that we continue learning from each other, with each other, together. And continually, we evolve this community, which many of you have been in for our 19 years, day by day. It's not a stagnant place. Our work isn't the same. We continue to learn and grow and change. We change it into an even more creative and vibrant place, and we come together, and we do that work. And tonight, with our community in a space, at least some of you, and we hope that those who couldn't attend will watch the videos and the virtual online, our team has asked that every speaker have an intention. And for those who want a little bit of a refresher, an intention is an action-oriented, relationship-focused kind of decision that you commit to. And so we're hoping everybody will do that. And tonight, we hope that our intentions will be about the innovators, and they'll be focused on how do you help the innovators who are here strengthen the nonprofits that they're leading. And you're going to have a chance to meet some amazing leaders and organizations. And Tony and I are setting an intention, and that is that the community that we build here tonight goes beyond this room, that it's not just people having a meal and having a drink together and watching a presentation, but that it leaves the room and that we're together in it in an extended way. And if we can do that by if we each shake hands or bump elbows with 5 or 6 people and maybe decide that you're going to follow up with 2 or 3 of them and get to know them better, whatever that means. And the extension of the welcome makes the community bigger. And everybody can do that. It's not just about, who can write checks. It's about how do you build community and make new connections. And so if Tony and I can do that, we hope you can do that as well. And so tonight, before we move on with the program and the spirit of community and continuous learning, I invite each of you to take out a pen, or you can do that now, or you can do that later, or you can do that in your mind. But we'd like you to jot down your intention. Whoops. Other than fork dropping. So we'd like you to write down an intention of what you hope to kind of do that you actually take away tonight. And so if you take just a quick pause, do that intention, and then I will call up the next speaker. Okay, my hope is that there are some great intentions in this room that really relate to the innovators and the amazing energy and commitments that you're going to see. So thank you. And now I'd like to introduce and call up Pavel Payano. Pavel is SIF's Director of Community Mobilization, and I'd say the key person who was, or one of the key people who was working, to really pull together so many pieces of tonight's event. Pavel is a lifelong social justice advocate who has been focused on policy issues around public health, education, and community empowerment. And Pavel will introduce the first 4 innovators tonight. So thank you again for coming. Really great to see you in person, and enjoy the next few hours, or next hour.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Susan. Good evening, everyone. All right, let's try one more time, because this is a night full of energy. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. All right, that's the SIF community. I want to welcome all of you tonight to tonight's showcase. I'm looking forward to connecting with all of you. As Susan said, all of us are creating or created intentions for tonight. And my intention is to build meaningful and personal connections with all of you in this room. After 2 years of Zoom meetings and Google Hangouts, isn't it great to finally be here in person? Right? Yeah. And especially within this room, because here we have social justice advocates, individuals that care about supporting and lifting up our communities forward. I hope you all join me in this intention and work to connect with someone you don't know or whose work you're interested in learning about more. To help facilitate this process, we have developed what we're calling connection cards. Those of you that were here in previous SIF showcase probably are remembering this a little bit. These are slightly different, which I'll explain in a little bit. They're going to allow you to connect with our innovators and begin the process of developing strong, authentic relationships with them. To access the connection cards, all you need to do is open up your showcase book. And within, you will find this. So this is, within this sheet has a QR code that all you need to do is scan, and it's going to direct you to a Google form. That is our connection card. Please be sure to connect with our innovators and fill out this form before you leave tonight. I have a very role, which I love, which is to introduce our 2022 Social Innovators. Tonight you will see a mix of media and some live and some pre-recorded presentations. The Loop Lab, which is our 2021 Social Innovator, supported us in creating a vibrant pitch video, and we're excited for you to see it. As many part of our work, we have continued being nimble and innovative and showing new ways to showcase our innovators' work. And for those of you who couldn't be here tonight, you're going to see them in a new light. I'm so honored to be introducing a group of people who are leaders in their fields, champions for their communities, and visionaries for social change. When you hear about their programs tonight and what they're asking for, please recognize how much they've done with such limited resources. You will quickly see how essential it is to grow this work across Greater Boston. They should be well-resourced to do that. Just like in our professional lives, that includes having fair salaries, supplies, healthy, safe buildings, and even emergency funds. With that said, I am excited to get started and introduce our first innovator, Mattapan Food and Fitness Coalition, on the track titled Building and Sustaining Social Capital, sponsored by the Mass Mutual Foundation. Chevalier Olivier is deeply committed to serving the communities where she lives, works, and plays. Throughout her 17 years in Mattapan, she has become Mattapan Food and Fitness Coalition's first executive director and explores her passions of community, transportation, and youth development. Co-founding a consulting agency, Consult Lala, she is able to continue intertwining all three of her passions by engaging young people in the transportation planning processes happening in the city of Boston. She holds a Master's of Science in Nonprofit Management from the Northeastern University and is currently obtaining a graduate certificate in Public Health at Boston University's School of Public Health. Welcome, Chevalier. Please, hand of applause.
What does it look like when a community leads? It looks like Jillian, a Mattapan resident. Jillian, along with other residents, did a food scan showing that Mattapan had 27 fast food restaurants within 2.8 square miles. Without her, we would not have been able to serve 3,400 residents at a farmer's market last summer. It looks like Jaheem, a vigorous youth ages 14 to 21 who work to improve the health and wellness of the Mattapan community. At 16, he helped to create Mattapan's first youth-led bike repair workshop. He's also my right-hand man for all things biking. It looks like me. I was a shy teen when I came to work at Mattapan Food and Fitness Coalition as a vigorous youth. Since then, I expanded our transportation work, would revitalize our youth programs, and then trusted to run the organization at 28. The power of this organization and its people transformed my life. So why these stories? What's the problem that myself, Jaheem, and Jillian is trying to solve? Mattapan has a health challenge. Compared to all the averages of Boston and the communities of Boston, Mattapan has some of the highest rates of hypertension, obesity, and diabetes. And this was on Vivian's mind when she founded the organization. A Mattapan resident for 34 years, a pediatric dietitian by trade, and a community activist by heart. Vivian and her colleagues conducted surveys and one-on-one interviews, asking residents what it is that they want to see. And they found that residents wanted healthier options to eat, and they wanted places to be more physically active. And these two wants spurred our mission of promoting health and healthy behaviors by improving access to good nutritional sources in the physical activity environments. Not enough good food options, not a lot of places to exercise were just two of the reasons why MFFC has identified why Mattapan has some of these high health disparities. We have identified three others: pollution and other environmental inequities, not enough opportunities for youth to be involved in the solution, and community members being and feeling unheard. Identifying these inequities was our first step. Our next steps are engaging, collaborating, and advocating to realize a better Mattapan. First, we explore these issues we engage our residents by exploring these issues. Then we collaborate with them and a variety of stakeholders to find solutions. Then we advocate for the changes that residents want to see. We will know we are successful when residents have easy and affordable access to healthy food options and places to exercise, when youth voices along with community resident voices are actually being valued, and when our environment is invested into. This isn't just a lofty vision, but something that we have been working on for 16 years. So let me give you some of our impact to date. Serving 51,000 residents at our farmers market, providing over 200 fitness classes, employing over 50 youth and giving away 70 bikes and 1,500 helmets, successfully advocating for the completion of the Neponset River Greenway Trail section in Mattapan, and supporting a neighborhood association with the building of a food forest. We're able to do this we're able to do this impact and continue our impact thanks to the collaboration of many of the organizations that you see here and others. Many dedicated volunteers have given their talents from designing the branding of the Mattapan Square Farmers Market to providing program evaluation support. But for 13 years, 9 passionate volunteers have given their time for free or a small stipend. For the past 3 years, 8 individuals have shared 3 full-time jobs and accomplished things like increasing our online presence, expanding our food access work, and I personally was able to devote more time on internal operations rather than programming. But we are exhausted. And what we need now is sustainability. We are looking for an investment of $2 million to build out our staff capacity, to expand our space, and continue serving our residents. Our goal is to have 8 full-time staff, which includes some senior staff and program staff. This is what our office space looks like currently. And if we had even more space, we'll be able to store our supplies and just get work done. But supporting our residents will always be our first priority. We want to be able to respond immediately when residents need support with buying food, and we can always use support with planning events and programming. With these asks and more, we will be able to pay our staff their worth and expand our impact. So, what does it look like when a community leads? It looks like MFFC. It looks like family.
All right. Thank you so much for that amazing message. Now I would like to introduce our second innovator, Chinatown Community Land Trust, on the track titled Pathway to Intergenerational Wealth in BIPOC Communities, sponsored by the Wagner Foundation. Lydia Lowell is the Executive Director of Chinatown Community Land Trust and has spent 35 years organizing for civil rights, workers' rights, and community empowerment in Boston, Chinatown. She serves on the Community Advisory Board. Wow, that mask, huh? She serves on the Community Advisory Board of UMass Boston's Institute for Asian American Studies, the Friends of the Chinatown Library, and the Governor's Environmental Justice Council. Welcome, Lydia.
Good evening. I'm Lydia, and I deeply believe in the human value of housing in a stable community. As a child, we were always on the move. My parents arrived here from war-torn China. They bought a home, bought investment properties, then lost everything in the crash. The family tragedy that followed cemented my belief in new community-centered approaches to wealth building. Because a home is more than a commodity. That's why I've spent more than 3 decades working with residents to preserve Chinatown as a stable community for working class families. So what can I tell you about Chinatown? Its legacy is determination. Chinatown began as a safe haven for generations of working class immigrant families struggling against exclusion and racial violence for a better life. Its people have suffered displacement. Since 2000, luxury development has brought another 3,000 luxury units to Chinatown, rapidly displacing residents. It reveals disparity. Chinatown today has 11,000 residents, but less than half are Asian. And a white household's median family income is more than 6 times that of an Asian household. Overall, Chinatown has 91% renters, and over a third live below the poverty line. Its destiny is at stake. Chinatown has a long and rich history as a working class neighborhood and an important cultural center for the region. But this future is threatened by unlimited real estate speculation. As a community land trust, we keep the land for community stability, not speculative profit. Through 99-year ground leases, we preserve permanently affordable homes, commercial and open spaces. The community land trust model is an important strategy for reaping the benefits of development without displacement. We envision a thriving Chinatown where families can remain and small businesses can thrive. That's why we're mobilizing people and resources through something we call community governance. Because it is never too late for a community to resist displacement. So how do we do that? We engage residents to shape the place that we call home. We stabilize through community control of public land and permanent affordability. And we steward the land and shared resources through community governance for a thriving Chinatown. Our land control approaches are based on 4 pillars of action: permanent affordability, preserving our history and culture, resilience and sustainability, and growing community wealth. The first pillar is permanent affordability. We're transferring Chinatown's small properties to low-income families as permanently affordable homes with modest appreciation. Recently, we purchased 2 19th century brick row houses, turning them into 7 low-income, permanently affordable homes for first-time home buyers. The first buyer standing next to me in this picture was Mei Danlin and her family of 4. She and her family of 4 had previously been renting a 3-bedroom apartment in Chinatown with 2 other families and her mother-in-law. We're preserving Boston's immigrant history through naming Chinatown as a cultural district and creating an immigrant history trail that lifts up and shares Chinatown stories. We're working for a row house protection area in the zoning code and to designate Chinatown as a historic conservation district, which is anchored by immigrant working class families. As a heat island and a flood danger zone, Chinatown is environmentally vulnerable. That's why we're creating a locally community-led energy microgrid. The microgrid will rebalance environmental injustice by reducing emissions and energy use and increasing resilience and community power. Finally, we're developing tools, financial tools, that invest in racial equity and stable communities. Our row house preservation fund raises capital from private donors for the flexibility to take homes off the market and make them deeply affordable for our community. We're devising ways for people to invest in stable communities, whether it's through permanently affordable housing or vibrant small businesses. These approaches are important to Chinatown, but they're important to many communities as well. Because transformative change takes time, we've set our goals in a 3-year time frame. We're seeking to raise $1 million for the Row House Preservation Fund to help us preserve permanently affordable housing, and to secure $1 million in equity investments so that we can launch the Chinatown microgrid next year. To do this, we're increasing staff capacity as well. Your investment in the Chinatown Community Land Trust will help us to stabilize Chinatown's future. So we ask you to support families like Meidan Lin's so that they can feel that sense of security in their heart and continue to call Chinatown home. Thank you.
Lydia, thank you so much. It's been great getting to know you and the amazing work of Chinatown Community Land Trust. Now, I'd like to introduce our third innovator, young man with a plan, on the track titled Work-Based Learning and Mentorship Opportunities for Youth and Young Adults, sponsored by someone else's child. Dr. J. Carey Simpson is the Executive Director of Young Man with a Plan. Prior to leading the organization, Dr. Simpson led Project Unchained at New Mission High School in Boston, where he mentored students of color, helping them improve their study skills and grades and to access and persist at college. Originally from Claiborne, Texas, Dr. Simpson attended Hyde Junior College and completed his BA at the University of New England. He received his MBA from St. Joseph College and his ED in Educational Leadership from New England College, where his research focused on Black male persistence. Dr. Simpson is also a founding member of Men on a Mission, a nonprofit serving children and families in his Texas hometown. Thank you, Dr. Simpson.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jakari Simpson, Executive Director of Young Men with a Plan. It is our mission to help young Black and Latino men in the middle achieve sustainable futures. On paper, we are a holistic mentoring program. In reality, we are a family, a brotherhood. In 2014, the Charles Hayden Foundation convened a meeting of 8 school leaders, a mix of BPS and charter, and asked them to address the common concern. They then identified young Black and Latino men in the middle. In 2015, Young Men with a Plan was launched. With 1 program leader, 8 schools, 8 school-based mentors, and 20 young men. We now serve 200 plus youth. That is a picture of me showing Jay how to tie a tie, something I didn't learn until 26. He just had a great prom, and now he's prepping for college. Who are young men in the middle? They're not the high-flying AP students. They're not the most at risk. They're the 2 middle quartiles. They tend to lack a place of belonging. They tend to fly under the radar. They don't really make a lot of noise. But they benefit greatly from the right attention and persistent guidance. And according to Maslow, we all must feel a sense of safety and belongingness before we can actually build an agency and esteem to actually achieve. Man, during COVID, we dealt with the pandemic on top of the pandemic, on top of the pandemic. Our kids suffered a lot. We took real losses. We stayed in contact with them, constantly addressed their well-being. We employ what we call intrusive coaching, where they're waking up, where they're going to school, where they listen to mama. Most importantly, how was their mental health? We dropped off food, gift cards, and PPE. And so during a time with so much loss and uncertainty, we were able to stay in contact and remain hopeful for the future. But how do we do this? We recruit young men in the middle from 8 schools starting in 9th grade. They then attend our weekly sessions, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. at our Hyde Park space. They also meet with their school-based mentor in their schools weekly. We have a holistic curriculum that addresses wellness, social, emotional, and academic growth. The young men form a supportive brotherhood where they learn about career and college options, financial literacy, healthy relationships, belongingness, accountability. We also have a space where they normalize mental health and asking for help. We employ multi-level mentoring. The young men, they also create a success plan. They do that for 4 years, twice a year, where they create their own goals, and they have them looked over by us and their parents to see, so we can kind of co-create. All of this helps them achieve sustainable futures while avoiding teen parenthood, the criminal justice system, as they're on their journey to grow economically and as men. But this takes work. This takes a village. And although we're blessed with a growing number of partners, we still need the village. And one example of our village is our Men of Color Career Night, where we're able to bring men of color from a variety of fields, and they're able to come over there and break bread with our young men. Talk about the obstacles they've overcome, the opportunities they have, that they too leave our young men believing that they too can achieve. Another example of those partners help keep our young men safe, access jobs, college and career exploration. We have a 90% retention rate over 4 years. And let me tell you something. I've witnessed kids in high school struggling drastically academically who now work in IT and another airplane mechanic, while the others are in college all throughout math, studying engineer, business, med bio, fashion, design. I'm not done. Liberal arts. 100% say they make better decisions. I've also witnessed kids starting freshman year of high school struggle with real anxiety and depression, who are now juniors and seniors in college figuring out life and kind of happier in their lane, and they keep telling me I'm living my best life, and I love it. This right here is the end of the year survey. 100% said they love being a part of the brotherhood. And if you look closely at that logo, that logo was actually created by one of our young men who's actually a sophomore in college in Western Mass. We constantly have kids telling us thank you for our space and for being safe in a place where they all belong. And though our future is bright yet demanding as we plan for steady growth and enrollment, we want to expand, but we also want to maintain our essence, our family, our brotherhood vibe. So over the next 2 years, we're seeking $1 million to launch an 8th grade program, to increase program days and staff, to ensure that we have a great space to keep our young men safe where everybody belongs, but also to launch a level of fulfilled funding that addresses basic needs like transportation, technology, and books that helps our young men keep up with their more privileged peers. That right there is a picture of our assistant director and a young man. He's talking to him about how to navigate relationships, both business-wise, romantic, and friendship-wise. He's also talking to him about colleges and what major he has to major in so he doesn't have to be broke and he can afford to live in Boston. So now I come to you as a middle brother, a middle quartile student who grew up with a lot more talented peers than I did. But with a little guidance here and there, I was able to go to college, although it took 6 years. And I received a bachelor's degree, and then an MBA. And now I come to you as Dr. Jakari Simpson. So for me, this is personal. It's mission-driven. So now I ask all of you to please join our village. Thank you.
Dr. Simpson, thank you so much. As a youth advocate, I'm proud of the work that you guys are doing. I hope to see you guys grow. Thank you. Now I would like to introduce our third innovator from my sister city, Lowell Community Health Center Teen Block. On the track titled Promoting Career Exploration for Youth Through Civic Engagement, sponsored by American Student Assistance. Ruth Ogimbo is the Director of Community Programs at Lowell Community Health Center. She joined the health center in 2012 as a young women program coordinator with Teen Block program. Ruth has been a strong advocate for youth working to make sure that their voice and lived experiences are elevated. She holds a master's degree in public health from the University of New Hampshire. Welcome, Ruth.
I was 14 years old when I immigrated from my beloved country of Kenya to a new country in the middle of nowhere in Durham, New Hampshire. Coming out of the school office one day, I heard habari gani, which is Kiswahili for what's the news, coming from behind me. Surprised at hearing my language on this here foreign land, I turned to find a smiling teacher who had studied abroad in Africa. She became a mentor who led me to an after-school program where I was able to find community. And in this community, I was able to make friends and be able to learn about the culture of this new country I was now calling home. Similar to how I found community in New Hampshire as a teen, I wanted to give back. And 57 miles away, I found a home in Teen Block, which was serving youth in Lowell. Lowell is a high-need community with it's a high-need community with a higher poverty rates compared to its neighbors, and a high number of young people who are considered high need because of economic challenges and also English proficiency. And as one of the hardest hit by COVID-19 communities, our young people's needs have been exacerbated. And of those needs, mental health challenges have been exacerbated, making it more important for them, more urgent for them to have access to youth programs that promote and support their wellness. Teen Block was founded 34 years ago, and it has grown to a multifaceted program that brings together evidence-based curricula, trained youth workers, youth development programming to support our young people's diverse needs. And Teen Block is integrated within a federally qualified health center, which makes it easy for our young people to have access to clinical services and mental health services for themselves and their families. Unlike other programs in the community, Teen Block is free and open to youth ages 13 to 18, and we support our alumni up to the age of 20 as they navigate college and career experiences. And the free aspect is really important because many of our families cannot afford to pay for programs for their young people for after-school programming. And 95% of our young people identify as youth of color, with each year, Teen Block serving over 500 unique youth yearly. And Teen Block provides meaningful engagement for our young people by convening and creating an inclusive and brave space where the young people can bring their ideas to life while working together with their peers and adult allies. And Teen Block staff reflect the diversity of our community, with our young people being served in a language of their comfort. And by providing cultural programs, expressive arts programs, and offering health and wellness prevention programs. By creating an environment where our young people's experience, voice, and leadership is valued, we see them flourish. We see them build a strong sense of self, physical, mental wellness, that they are able to make health-informed decisions for themselves and their families. We support our young people create pathways to careers, training, and colleges, and higher education. And we see our young people leave our program prepared to be thriving community members who are well-equipped and well-engaged to be part of our thriving workforce. And we challenge our young people to be agents of change in the community. Our graphic model reflects the cycle nature of our work. So a young person who joins the program as an impressionable youth, engages in the program, and lives as a successful leader who goes on to support the next generation of impressionable youth. In addition to the experiences and the skills that the young people gain in programming, they also get to have first-time experiences. Imagine seeing stars for the first time, like our young people do when they go on retreats. Imagine going to the beach, smelling the ocean, and feeling sand on your feet for the first time, like our young people do. And some of our young people, they lack family engagement, which is why it's really important for us to have all of our meals as a family. And after one of such retreats, a young person was extremely grateful for the experience, because in their 17 years of life, that was the first time they had family dinner. COVID has made it extremely difficult for us to provide programming, and engaging youth virtually has been a challenge. As we are transitioning to in-person programming, an investment of $400,000 will help us meet our goals of re-engaging youth by hiring dedicated community health workers and supporting our young people have access to the mental health supports that they need by hiring a dedicated clinical social worker within the program, and by increasing our technology resources to help reduce the digital divide among our youth. As a recent immigrant teen coming out of a school office one day, a seemingly random encounter led me to our youth program that forever changed my life. With your support, I hope that in the next few years, when the question is asked, Habari Gani, Teen Block, what's the news? We can say, and I quote one of our youth, Teen Block means security. It was the most secure thing in my life at the moment.
Ruth, thank you so much. It's been incredible reconnecting with Teen Block and seeing the incredible work that you guys are doing just a few miles away from my home. Thank you so much, Ruth. Now we're going to transition to our halftime, I call it halftime show if you're watching the Super Bowl, right? The intermission. But at this time, if anybody would like to get up and use the bathroom, please, take the time and do that. But I will go on and introduce this amazing program. I'd like to welcome Musao Dibinga, leader of the amazing Origination Cultural Arts Center, which is also a 2020 Social Innovator. Musao was the founding managing director of the Origination Cultural Arts Center and became its executive director in 2018. She has a BA in International Relations and Economics from the University of Pennsylvania and an MBA from Boston University. 15 years of investment management experience and over 40 years of dance training, performance, and instruction. Musao, please join me on stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Good evening. There are a lot of you in here, and we need your energy. Good evening. Thank you. I am so excited to be here, and I am a proud member of the class of 2020, otherwise known as the first pandemic class with a virtual showcase. So this is like brand new. But I want to thank the Social Innovation Forum for this opportunity, because 2 years ago it was tough during the pandemic, and they really guided us through this rigorous program, and they have really helped Origination elevate to another level. So I just wanted to really thank everyone at the Social Innovation Forum for this opportunity. So at Origination, we use the arts to help our young people become the best versions of themselves, to become the best citizens that they can be within their families and their communities, and to also change the narrative of what society thinks that Black and brown youth should become. And the best way to show you this example is to introduce our senior members of the Professional Dance Division, Nia Dance Troupe. They range in age from 15 to 17. They are high school students. And we're excited to announce that after a 2-year hiatus, they will be going on a service tour to London in August, where they're very excited about that, where they will work with young people in foster care homes, children's facilities, DYS facilities, teach dance. We'll be handing out toiletries to families in need, and also learn about the African American culture within London. So without further ado, please put your hands together, and you need to be loud, for Nia Dance Troupe.
We are your future, and we have a voice. We're tired of the nonsense, but do you give us a choice? We're young, we're children, we fear for our lives. We go to the park to play, you go to the park with knives. You blow up our homes, bring guns to our schools and supermarkets, put our lives in your hands. Don't you know that we're jewels? We're young, we're children, full of fun and dreams. To be a lawyer, the president, a chef, or anything. It's our right to live free, feel safe, and grow up. Not walk to the store, hear a noise, and have to duck. We're sick of the nonsense, so please, hear our plea. Think of the children and the babies, and just let us be.
Perfect. Am I too dark, too brown, or too tan to fit into your image of a perfect human?
Is my hair too kinky, too curly, or too coarse to fit into your image of beauty?
Just a floss? Oh no, you're too bossy, too loud, and too hood. You remind me of the saying, milk does the body good. Perfect. Am I too curvy, too full, or too thick to be a prima ballerina?
Or should I make myself sick?
I am strong, determined,
Courageous,
intelligent, beautiful, black.
I'm the girl who sets the standards,
I'm the one who leads the path. I'm the one who has all the questions.
and I'm the one who takes no slack.
I'm the artist, the chemist, the athlete, the mom, the teacher, the nurse,
The policewoman, lawyer, and first lady.
the one here to cure all of the hurt. From the complexion of my skin,
To the texture of my hair,
my talent, my intelligence,
and all the love that we share.
we're fearless, the conquerors, the queens of this earth. A perfect 10, society's label. I determine my worth.
On a cold day in January, we had a cohort meeting where we kicked it off with a little opener. What intentions have you set for 2022? Folks used one of those word cloud apps to share their one-word intention for the upcoming year. And as we were planning for Showcase and thinking about our theme of intentions, I had remembered the word cloud. So the words I'm about to read are just some of the intentions these leaders set for themselves this year and really resonated with me and what I'd like to hold tonight. Learn, listen, be open to saying yes more. Be confident, have self-compassion, have fun, eat and hydrate, especially tonight with all of the networking. Be open-minded, connect with what matters, breathe. Thank you for giving me a moment to share these special intentions. So before I introduce the next presenter, I'd like to extend a couple of thank yous to people who have been working very hard with the innovators to make sure that they had all that they needed for this evening. To our wonderful consultants who are around the room who worked alongside the innovators for the past 5 months preparing for this day, we are so grateful for their work with the SIF team and the 2022 Social Innovators. I'd also like to, yes, round of applause to our amazing consultants. I'd also like to thank the presentation advisors and pitch panelists and other folks in our network who helped the innovators prepare for today, along with our in-kind partner Aerial Group, who had been instrumental in supporting the presentation. So we appreciate all of their support. I also want to thank those who volunteered on our nomination and evaluation committees, as their guidance in this process has been essential. And finally, I just want to extend and acknowledge our executive coaches, many of whom who are in the room today, who will work with the innovators at the next stage of their SIF journey. So now, I'd like to introduce our next innovator, Sisters Unchained, on the track titled Women and Girls, Addressing Health and Wellness Inequities, sponsored by the Jacket Foundation. Ayana Auberg is co-founder and co-executive director of Sisters Unchained. Ayana grew up in Cambridge and first came to community organizing as a member of Youth Against Mass Incarceration, soon after her father was released from prison. She is also a 2019 Reimagining Communities Fellow, where she conducted and supervised participatory research with women and families most affected by the criminal legal system. She is deeply committed to and guided by a community of daughters with incarcerated parents and organizes healing spaces for women and their families, as well as supports their advocacy. And now I'd like to welcome Ayana.
Hi, my name is Ayana Auberg, and I'm co-founder and co-executive director of Sisters Unchained along with Vanessa Lee. We started doing programs in 2015 and officially became incorporated in 2021. We support young women ages 14 through 19 years old who have a currently or formerly incarcerated parent, as well as their families and women returning from the community from prison. Sisters Unchained is based on our personal experience and a profound understanding of the challenges of being a child with a parent behind bars. Here's a photo of my family visiting my father in Ferriton, New Jersey. At the time, I was 10 years old, and my mother, who was 27, came home from her double shift at work, took a quick nap, then got all three of us up early and on the road. She drove 6 hours to get us to the prison. I remember the long rides and feeling so much anxiety. The prison was in the middle of nowhere. But when we finally got to the visiting room, most of my anxiety washed away, seeing the room packed with so many other families. Spending time with my dad, playing checkers with him, and hearing all about his dreams were beautiful moments that helped me form a bond with him despite our separation. Unlike the commonly portrayed narrative, my father stayed engaged with all of us throughout his incarceration. However, my mother carried the financial and the emotional burden to hold our family together throughout his sentence. Unfortunately, I'm not alone. 2.7 million children in the United States have an incarcerated parent. 1 in 4 students in Boston Public Schools have an incarcerated parent. Black children are 9 times and Latinx children are 3 times more likely than white children to have an incarcerated parent. And in most cases, women are primary caretakers of children when their parents are incarcerated. Children with incarcerated parents experience a myriad of traumas and often have unmet mental health needs. Sisters Unchained creates a strong network of love for young women with incarcerated parents through this three-pronged approach. First, our intensives, which we call sisterships, are at the core of our programming, bringing together young women to build community and knowledge. Our curriculum focuses on improving mental health. The second component of our program is family connections. Children having contact with their parent is important for family well-being and healthy development. So we launched Rise for Families to conduct regular visits for families of incarcerated people. We provide free transportation and meals, as well as emotional support for children and family members pre and post visits. The third element of our programs is community engagement. SU undertakes various campaigns throughout the year in collaboration with other community groups. SU has led and supported a variety of projects, including a ballot initiative, to facilitating workshops for women and parents returning from prison, to documenting our stories and showcasing it at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, among others. Our program empowers young women to lift their voices and become advocates for alternative sentencing and abolishing the current prison system. Just as abolitionists in the 19th century sought to end slavery, Sisters Unchained is part of a movement to end policies and practices that have led to mass incarceration. We take a holistic approach to improving mental health with a focus on visual arts and artistic expression, including gardening, poetry, digital media, yoga, healing circles, as well as learning about women-led movements for social change. We create a family throughout this process. For example, one of our participants, Nishani, shared that SU is a second home for me because I feel comfortable to say what I need and feel. I can tell you firsthand that the young women who are part of the Sisters Unchained community are experiencing transformation. Since we began operating programs, we have worked with over 70 young women and supported 95% of our members' post-secondary plans, including college, vocational school, or entrepreneurship. We build community, confidence, creativity, and access to college. Now that we have a clear program structure, we have ambitious goals. Here you can see our plan to grow the program. By 2024, we will grow the number of young women who participate in our sisterships from 55 to 80 annually. For family connections, we will increase the number of people who partake in family visits from 70 to 200. We will increase the number of people we engage in our community programs from 260 to 600. Our current budget is $400,000. To accomplish our goals, we will need to up our fundraising. With this increased funding, we will hire additional staff to increase participants, expand family visits, enhance development and performance measurement, and find a permanent space for our offices and programming. For 2023 and 2024, we are seeking a total investment of $1.46 million. We ask you to help us reach this goal today. To the left is a photo of my mom and I. I've witnessed her grow into a liberated woman who inspires me to achieve greater success. To the right is a photo of my dad and I. He came home about a month before I graduated high school. I love this photo so much, not only because he's physically with me to celebrate, but because he was a major factor for me getting into Simmons College, where I graduated in 2016. During my senior year, when he was in prison, he helped me land an incredible internship. He edited all of my college essays and so much more. For most moms and dads in prison, parenting does not stop once they're behind bars. However, we need more resources for them to overcome the barriers that separate us. Help us bring down the wall today. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Ayana and the Sisters Unchained team who is here today, of all of your incredible work. And now I'd like to introduce our next innovator, the Center for Hope and Healing, on the track titled Anything Goes: Innovative, Effective, and Sustainable Approaches to Our Region's Toughest Social Issues, sponsored by Boston Open Impact. Isa Walda-Georgis has been the executive director of the Center for Hope and Healing for the past 10 years. Isa has been a policy leader, advocate, and activist locally and nationally for most of her 20-year tenure. Not only is Isa a dynamic trainer, writer, and leader in the field, she has been a steadfast advocate for equity and racial justice. She is a member of the faculty of the Institute for Nonprofit Practice, a 2017 Social Innovator, the board chair of the National Women of Color Network, and the co-chair of the Massachusetts Women of Color Network. And now I'd like to welcome Isa.
That's a nice picture of me, huh? What do you think? Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad to be here tonight. I want to thank SIF folks and our coach and my team who's here tonight. Woo-hoo, woo-hoo. The Center for Hope and Healing is on a mission. We're on a mission to break the silence around sexual violence and ultimately to end it in our lifetime. Imagine me at 10 years old. I was born and raised in the Bronx, sitting on the edge of my bed, wondering how I was going to tell my parents I was being sexually abused by an older brother. My mind was racing, my heart was pounding. There's no way they're going to believe me. They'll be angry with me. I'll lose my whole family. I didn't know how to say anything, so I didn't. For many, many years, I was silent and I was alone. Maya Angelou said, "I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it." This was a phrase I didn't understand as a child. No child can. It wasn't until I came to CHH that I understood what this phrase means. And it's something you'll hear in our hotline calls and our work with survivors. This was not your fault. You did not do anything to deserve this. And you are more than what happened to you. This is the foundation of what we do. And there's truth about sexual assault. The reality is that nearly 500,000 people are sexually assaulted every year. The majority of them are children, and many others who are very vulnerable to abuse. So our work is around facing this truth, and our work is about ending sexual violence. Our roots are in advocacy movements. I was talking with someone about that earlier today. We're advocates in our DNA. We came through the rape crisis movement of 1976 when hotlines were at kitchen tables and people took relatives in the secret in the night. But we're no longer hiding in the secret. Our work is to end sexual violence by involving our community. We can't do this alone. It'll take our community to end sexual violence. So now, as you see, people are out on the streets with our logo, with our materials. And we ask ourselves a new question. Rather than hide survivors away like a dirty little secret, we say, what would it be like to have a world where sexual assault didn't exist? Right? Imagine a world where all people feel respected, valued, and safe in their relationships. Imagine a world free from sexual violence. This is what we began to do at CHH. Sexual assault is like what you see on the left side of this picture. It's dark, it's heinous, it's rooted in oppression. It's not pretty dinner conversation, for sure. But what we do is utilize 6 core strategies that build bridges to healing, right? That build bridges to survivors, bridges to safety. And everything we do is about moving towards greater equity and ultimately liberation, right? What is said by Assata Shakur and other activists, right? Unless all of us are free. Say it again. That's right. Unless all of us are free, none of us are free, right? So that's what we do. It's working towards greater liberation. This is our model for change. And the first part of it is our survivor services. We're there for survivors 24/7, 365 days a year, right? We're the ones picking up the hotline in the middle of the night. And medical advocates who show up in emergency rooms, right? When no one else is there to be with survivors. This is our survivor services. We had a young person once tell us, I was alone in the dark, like that dark tree, until you all came in and opened the door and brought in the light. This is the work we want to do at CHH. Prevention. Ultimately, we want to prevent sexual violence. In order to do that, we come against and we work against the norms of rape culture, toxic masculinity, racism, right? Sexism, right? So our work is involving those communities and working with those young folks, with men and boys, with black girls, right? Communities who are more vulnerable and affected by sexual violence. And then there's our amazing Stephanie shouting out on the streets, right? Shout out to Stephanie, even though she's not here. Our impact, our model for change works. It works. In 1 year, we reached over 500 people in our survivor services programs. Our Hope Prevents, our prevention programs, reached 250 people. And we reached over 2,000 community members. And guess what? COVID years, right? These weren't regular years. This was during COVID, folks. Right? So what happened during COVID-19? As you heard earlier, and we've all said in this field, we had to pivot. We couldn't do what we normally do. Survivors couldn't come to us. So guess what? We decided to go to them. Right? Okay? We decided to go to them. We bought a van. I saw something similar earlier. We bought a van, and we called it Driving Hope, and we took it out to the community. We dropped off PPE. We dropped off gift cards. We dropped off socks, whatever people needed. Right? We got out from behind our office and our desks and went out into our community. That's how we're going to end sexual violence. CHH is always driving hope. We are always about driving hope. And then we took another bold step during COVID and bought an 11,000 square foot building. Right? We have a new home. We have a permanent home in downtown Lowell where we forever will be, where we will open our doors to the community and come out from behind the shadows and out in front in our community. So we have a new home. That's what we did during COVID. So we have some goals. We have some big goals. The first of which is to convert this new home into a vibrant, active, accessible community center. Some place where people will feel welcome and excited to walk in. We want to do things like gardening, cooking classes, salsa lessons, right? Anything, right, that our community needs and wants. This building will be a building where it can happen. It will take a $450,000 investment to transform this old bank. It's not a place where community really wants to hang out right now, but it will be. So we want to invite you to join with us in our Building Hope campaign. Right? This investment will be significant and will be permanent in the city of Lowell. Our second goal, we want to sustain. We want to keep doing the innovative work. That's how we got here, as innovators. We want to be able to keep doing the innovative work we do and do more of it. So we need more staffing in order to do that. And moving away from government funding. I can't tell everyone in this room who's a nonprofit leader the traps of government funding. We're not going to talk about that right now. But anyway, sustainability, we want to be able to sustain. That will take a $480,000 investment. And Lowell Community Health Center, do you recognize this room? We love our community partners, absolutely. 2-year goals. So we ask you to invest in us, right? For $930,000, this investment, this dream can be realized. These goals can be accomplished. And talk about intentions. Imagine a world free from sexual violence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isa, and to all of the incredible and critical work that your organization does at the Center for Hope and Healing. Thank you. I'd now like to introduce our next innovator, the Boston Alliance of LGBTQ+ Youth, Bagley, on the track titled Comprehensive and Innovative Approaches to Supporting Communities Affected by HIV/AIDS, sponsored by the Coleman and Carol Levin Fund. Grace Sterling Stoll has been a pioneering activist and leader in the LGBTQ+ and social justice communities for over 40 years. Grace is the founding executive director of Bagley, one of the oldest and largest LGBTQ+ youth organizations in the nation. Grace is a founding member of several local and national LGBTQ+ youth and advocacy organizations and currently serves as executive committee member of the Massachusetts Commission of LGBTQ+ Youth, a steering committee member of the Massachusetts Transgender Political Coalition, and a board member of Break Time, a 2021 social innovator. And now I'd like to welcome Grace.
Thank you so much, everyone, and I really appreciate this opportunity to join you all tonight on behalf of Bagley. So I would like to start by sharing a personal story. As a queer and trans young person growing up in the 60s and 70s, I know firsthand many of the struggles that young people face and the impact of hate. I could not and would not hide who I was, and being so visible, I was the target of daily harassment, discrimination, and violence. One night in the early 80s, I went out with a group of friends from Bagley for a late-night bite to eat at the IHOP in Brookline. As soon as we walked in, we could tell that the crowd was drunk and rowdy and mean. They started harassing us with slurs and catcalls, and so we decided that we wouldn't stay. But I needed to use the restroom first. Two guys followed me in. They came up behind me, threatened me, and started beating me up until they knocked me to the ground. Then they dragged me into the stall and left me on the tile floor, bleeding and trying to save my broken teeth. When I could stand up, I left the restroom, and a customer at the door nearest me said, "Well, if you hadn't been such a fag." As my friends rushed up to me, I heard the police officer on duty at the door calling in on his radio, "Some faggot just got beaten up." I was too afraid to seek medical attention, but my friends, my Bagley family, took me home and took care of me. I survived and thrived because of the support and community that I found through Bagley, and for me, it was a lifesaver. And just as Bagley was there for me, now 42 years later, I've been with Bagley. I wish I could tell you all that everything has changed for the better and things like this don't happen anymore, but we all know that isn't true. In fact, 2021 was the worst year on record for anti-LGBT equality attacks in the United States. Over 268 anti-equality bills were filed in states across the country, many of them specifically and viciously targeting the lives of transgender youth and their families. Tragically, 2022 is already worse. And even here in Massachusetts, yet LGBTQ young people continue to be the target of hate just because of who they are. In fact, the local statistics demonstrate what we already know to be true on the ground at Bagley. Queer and trans young people are at increased risk for every negative health outcome, including homelessness, violence, and suicide. No young person should ever have to experience what I did in growing up, and we are here tonight to stop those attacks in their tracks. So back in the 80s, Bagley had no funding, no staff, and no home. But from the very beginning, our approach was youth empowering youth. Bagley has always centered its youth leaders. And now, decades later, Bagley is the longest-standing youth-led LGBT youth organization in the nation, and we have served over 40,000 young people since we began. Today, Bagley operates out of a community center in downtown Boston, not far from here, and we provide a wide range of social support, health promotion, and leadership development programs led by and for young people for over 1,500 youth each year. Bagley specifically prioritizes the needs of youth of color and transgender and non-binary youth who are at increased risk due to social and institutional racism and transphobia. Bagley also supports a network of community-based LGBT youth groups across Massachusetts from the Berkshires to the Cape. The Bagley Network serves over 6,000 young people each year and ensures that young people can get whatever they need wherever they are. So how does Bagley accomplish our goals? Well, first, Bagley trains and develops youth leaders to lift their voices and find their power. Second, Bagley provides behavioral health and HIV/AIDS services that gives young people the information they need to support their healthy decision-making. And third, Bagley provides opportunities for youth leaders to go out into their communities to advocate for public policies and best practices. This approach ensures that young people are ready and able to make positive change in the world. So here's where all of you come in. Bagley is asking for $750,000 over the next 2 years to cover essential costs for the following 2 priorities. Priority 1, to double the size of our community center from 5 to 10,000 square feet in order to increase the number of youth served and to expand our life-saving and life-changing programs and services. And priority 2, to increase the number of trained and mobilized youth leaders throughout Massachusetts by 30% in order to support their ability to advocate for what they need. We are asking everyone in this room to step up as allies to the young people of Bagley and the Bagley Network. With your support and commitment, we can all work together to create a world that is safer, healthier, and happier for the young people of all of our communities. Thank you so much, and I truly appreciate your support.
Grace, thank you so much. The LGBTQ+ youth of Boston are so lucky to have you as a leader and mentor. Thank you again. All right, and now I'd like to introduce our last innovator of the evening, Transformational Prison Project, on the track titled Community Approaches to Advancing Racial Justice, sponsored by the Social Innovator Alumni Collaborative. As Executive Director, Armand Coleman oversees Transformational Prison Project's programming, partnerships, and fundraising. Armand is a formerly incarcerated citizen with extensive facilitation experience in restorative justice practices, which he credits with changing his life. In addition, he is a Galaxy Gives Leadership Fellow, advisor for Everyday Boston, a 2021 Social Innovator, and co-teaches a class of restorative justice at the Harvard School of Law. Additionally, Armand is a guest lecturer at Boston College, Northeastern, and Columbia University's law schools. And now I'd like to welcome Armand.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I begin, I would like to just take you through a little exercise, something that we do in every restorative space for the Transformational Prison Project, which is a grounding. And we do grounding just to get more connected and more in tune. So it's an invitation, and the invitation is for everybody to just, if you're comfortable with it, you could close your eyes and just to begin to bring your attention to your breath. And I'm going to guide us in something where we just take a collective deep inhale for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you can exhale. And then we're going to repeat that process again of a deep inhale. Hold for a couple of seconds, then exhale. And one last time, another deep inhale. Hold for a couple of seconds, then exhale. Thank you. Thank you for trusting me and going through that process with me. I really appreciate it. I actually needed that just to calm my nerves a little bit. All right, so breathing together, breathing actually allows us to be more present, and breathing together helps us build more connection and community. So I want to just say, so I grew up in Queens, New York, And growing up in Queens, New York, my life was determined by housing instability. I actually experienced 12 different living environments before I was even a teenager. And this included 5 different stints at my grandparents' house. Both my grandparents were alcoholics, and 13 of us shared a 3.5 bedroom house. I shared a bedroom with 4 of my uncles, and they stashed their guns and they stashed their drugs literally like under my mattress. One thing that my family always stressed was the importance of not snitching. You never tell on a family member, and you don't tell on anybody for that matter. But I looked up to my uncles. I loved them. They were the male figures in my life, and I wanted to be just like them. And they were literally like heroes of mine. So I would eventually follow them into the family business, I would say, of drug dealing. And I learned a lesson of not snitching the hard way when I made the mistake of snitching on my uncle one day at the age of 5 to my grandfather. And when my uncle found out, he took a brick and he hit me in the back of the head. What ensued was my aunt took me to the hospital. I received stitches, and then my mother came to the hospital, and I recall my mother asking me, like, what happened? Why? What happened? What happened? So I explained to her that her brother, my uncle, had hit me in the back of the head for telling on him. And I remember her response was, "That's why you don't tattle." I expected her to say I did the right thing, that my uncle would get in trouble, but literally her response was like, "That's why you don't tattle." So I basically learned the lesson the hard way that snitches get stitches, as they say in the streets. And that lesson will come full circle when less than 12 years later, I would hit somebody in the back of the head with a bullet with fatal consequences for snitching on somebody that I considered my uncle. This would cause me to be sentenced to life in prison. And I would spend the next 28 years incarcerated. I spent 2 decades plus in maximum security prison. I spent over 12 years in solitary confinement. Just think about that. I went to prison when I was 17 years old. And when I went into the prisons, I was actually the youngest person in the prison when I went to MCI Walpole. When I left the maximum security prison of Sousa Baranowski 20 years later, I was one of the oldest persons in that cell block. And I spent the last 8 years of my incarceration in a place called MCI Norfolk. And this is where I encountered restorative justice. This is our healing circle in restorative justice in MCI Norfolk. When I went to MCI Norfolk, I encountered the restorative justice group, which was led by a group of lifers, men that I knew, men that I love, men that I respected, and some of whom that I even looked up to. And this is also where I was able to learn that my childhood was a roadmap of traumas. I actually began to learn how the communal, systemic, and how all these things basically contribute to my criminality and all the missteps that I was taking in life. And it was an awakening experience for me. One thing I also learned was that the criminal system was broken and that it was in dire need of transformation. While the criminal justice system focuses on the accused and the state, restorative justice is centered on the survivor of harm and those responsible for causing harm. The criminal justice system focuses on punishment and the destructive tools of incarceration. Restorative justice looks at the bigger picture and has at its heart communication and making amends through apology and restitution that addresses the harm that leads to true healing. It was through restorative justice that at MCI Norfolk that I met 3 other men. Noble, Eric, and Bobby. Together, we worked to build definitely, the most robust restorative program that the prison system has ever seen. Our primary objective and our focus group was the men in the prison between the ages of 18 and 30. For 7 years, we worked together. We prototyped our program, we modeled our program. And while we did it, we actually listened to the men in the program, took feedback, and we realized early on that what we were doing had real-world applications, and that one day we would return to society, and that we would just bring restorative justice to our communities and to a world that was hurting. And this gets me real emotional because most of the men in the picture right there are serving a life sentence. I was serving a life sentence. Bobby was serving a life sentence. Eric and Noble was serving long-term sentences. So, yeah. So, anyway, we knew that once we got out of prison, that we would share this model and help the world that was hurting. And we know that there's a lot of work to be done. While the United States has 5% of the world's population, we have 25% of the prison population. Right now, there are 1.2 million people in prison in the United States, 12,000 incarcerated here in Massachusetts. Of the 650 Americans returning from prison to their communities each year, 2,500 are here in Massachusetts, and about half of them are back in prison within a few years. When the Transformational Prison project first began, it was volunteer-led on the outside, and it was led by prisoners on the inside. Noble, Bobby, Eric, and I were all benefactors of the restorative justice group or program, and it led to our freedom in varying ways. And in January of 2021, we were all hired as the program directors together to become the first formerly incarcerated members of the organization. But when this happened, this was literally like at the height of the pandemic, and we were not allowed to go back into their prisons. So instead of giving up, we grew up, and we had to find different ways to apply what we knew. So this is our motto now. The heart of TPP work is the prisoners and survivors of harm. With the pandemic, we expanded our work to include classrooms, courtrooms, and boardrooms. We introduced the tool of restorative justice dialogue and restorative justice as a team-building leadership model. We do this by connecting to individual traumas in all the ways it shows up, acknowledging the wrongs individuals have committed and owning it, making amends with those who have been victimized, making meaning of the problem, and building human connections to help individuals continue to process and thrive. This leads to a life in a world of empathy, accountability, compassion, and most importantly, healing. We do this in 3 ways: The core of our work is in the Massachusetts prison, holding restorative healing circles, not only with those who have committed harm, but those who have been survivors of harm. Also included in that is law enforcement and community members. Secondly, we do community circles. We work in partnership with the law schools from Harvard to Northeastern and Columbia, and we are impacting the future stewards of the legal system. We also work with corporations like Redfin to do team building programs to help their companies lead with purpose and empathy. And thirdly, we are building the pipeline through education and support, training formerly incarcerated people who were a part of the restorative justice process inside the prison to become circle leaders outside of prison. And restorative justice works. Restorative justice accounts for a decrease in the victim's desire for violent revenge against their offenders, the offender's desire for committing further crime, the cost of criminal justice, and recidivism rates. We are working with Harvard Chan School of Public Health to design and implement restorative-centered evaluation and measurements as it relates to the pathways of incarceration. Over the next 3 years, we need to triple the number of individuals we serve. We want to expand our work to all the prisons in Massachusetts. We want to deepen and expand our work with higher education partners and corporate clients. And our goal is also to open the first ever East Coast assisted living environment, or supportive living environment, excuse me. To do all this, we need to increase our full-time staff from 5 to 13 to give us the infrastructure that we need. And investing in people who takes money. We are looking for $4.3 million to invest in the highly important work of restorative justice for all. I went to prison because I was hurt. Through restorative justice, that hurt turned into healing. And the ripples of restorative justice are infinite. There is no algorithm that could calculate the number of people that we have touched and can touch and heal through this work. So I ask that you please partner with us to scale our impact, work with us to build our infrastructure, dream with us to build a world that we want to live in. As Bobby, Noble, Eric, and I say, hurt people, but heal people, heal people.
Armand, thank you, and to all of the TPP team for the incredible work that you do. Let's give it up for all the innovators tonight. Amazing. So you've heard these 8 amazing innovators. What is next? So I get to introduce a thoughtful, nonprofit funder, dynamic duo, Bjorg Gwigny, Executive Director of Beat the Streets New England, a 2019 Social Innovator, and Sherry Garak, Executive Director of the Becker Family Foundation, to talk a little bit more about what's next, when what we all want is to make meaningful change. Welcome. Take your time.
Can y'all hear me? Short people problems, so. All right, hello, my name is Bjorg Gwigny, and I'm the CEO of Beat the Streets New England, formerly known as Boston Youth Wrestling.
And I am Sherry Garak, Executive Director of the Becker Foundation.
And just like every year when I go home to visit my mom in Florida, as a single woman, I'm here to talk about relationships.
Bjorg warned me she was going to be improvising, and I think she's hilarious, so this is going to be fun. and it wouldn't really make sense to have just one person up here talking about relationships, because relationships are about connections between people.
So we first met in 2018 when Sherry was a funder participant of the Inspire Boston Funder Collaborative.
And Bior was newly the executive director of what was then Boston Youth Wrestling. And I didn't know anything about wrestling, but when we did the site visit, Bior blew all of us away. We could see right away what an outstanding and talented leader she was, with such a strong vision. And she knows how to bring her ideas to life at the highest levels of execution.
She speaks my love language. Prior to SIF and being executive director, I actually worked right here in the stateroom. This was my very first job in Boston, and it is an incredible room. It was the easiest thing to sell in my life, right? All you have to do is open the windows, and it is the best view in all of Boston, with one of the best teams in all of Boston. So round of applause for the stateroom team. They don't get it enough. But that was an easy sell, right? You can see how beautiful the space is, you can see the incredible view, and you can see the hard work that goes into this production every single day. But when I was trying to sell the vision of Beat the Streets, or Boston Youth Wrestling, it was a hard sell for me. I didn't know how to turn that vision into a reality for people who knew nothing about wrestling, or how to get them to understand right away the impact of our work. But by building a strong relationship, I was able to finally bring that vision to life. Lucky for me, and for all the innovators that we have here, the next part of our journey is actually getting to work with our executive coach. And I had no idea what that was gonna look like. But what it looked like for me was Sherry helping me discover my voice, helping me learn what it was like to actually lead authentically as myself. And for the first time as an executive director, I saw a funder who felt more like a mentor and a friend than anything else that I could have hoped for. Someone who I trusted for advice, and I still text all hours of the night, and someone who I wasn't afraid to share our successes, because sometimes we worry that it makes us seem like we're doing too well, or our struggles because it seems like we're not doing good enough.
Yeah, and I think, one of the wonderful things about SIF is there's so many points of connection that you can build. And most recently, Bior and I got to work together on the participatory grant-making track. And Bior was a consultant, and I was on as a funder. And in this really exciting pilot, SIF flipped the script, and the funders completely handed over decision-making power to an incredible group of innovator alumni. And it was an extraordinary learning experience for all of us. And they didn't tell us we were going right after Armand, because we're all crying.
I know, we're like,
because we're incredibly proud that the process resulted in the selection of Transformational Prison project, and we are so proud of that incredible team. So our engagement with SIF has given us a lot of time and opportunities to build a really strong relationship, and I'm very grateful for Bior's presence in my life. She's brilliant, she's thoughtful, and she always makes me laugh, and I've learned a lot from her. And we want all of you to have relationships like this one. So tonight we want to offer you 10 intentions for building deep and authentic relationships between funders and organizational leaders. And start with this. Be accountable. Do what you say you're going to do. Follow up, follow through, and don't make people chase you.
Be vulnerable. We're all human. No one is perfect. When you're open about your struggles, you make it easier for people to understand the support that you need.
Be transparent. Be open about your processes, your thinking, and your decision-making.
Show up authentically. It's hard for me to be myself, and when I embraced it, I was able to share our story, our why, and not afraid of our expectations, experiences, or to even set boundaries.
Yeah. Be available. Make time and space for each other when asked, or whenever you get texted.
All the time. Be curious. Don't make assumptions. Ask questions. get to know each other, learn, that's capitalized, ask for feedback, and be open about what you hear.
Be respectful. Use people's time well. Come to meetings prepared and on time. Funders in the room, please streamline your application processes as much as you can.
Yes.
And please don't ask organizational leaders for information you can easily find on their website.
Yes, thanks for that. Be a partner. Neutralize the power imbalances. See each other as equals who both bring value to the relationship. Look for ways to make life easier for one another.
Listen actively. Stay present to what the other person is saying and process together. And funders, another note for you, honor the expertise of the organizational leaders who are closest to the work.
And have empathy. Everyone has good days, everyone has bad days. Emotions are part of the human experience, especially right now, coming off of 2 years of a pandemic living. We haven't done this in person since I was an innovator in 2019. So give each other grace and time.
So these intentions are good, but a relationship starts with a connection, and then someone has to make the first move. The innovators who spoke tonight inspired all of us with their passion and their vision. And in a few minutes, I think they're going to go back up to their tables and they'll be standing there and they'll go back to meeting lots and lots of people.
And just like online dating, this process is exhausting. And tomorrow, these incredible innovators will be exhausted. Catching up, work, and with their teammates, they'll have a ton of follow-up to do and so many new people to connect with. They'll be trying to remember who they met tonight with a mask on, and they'll have no idea what to do next. Or maybe that was just me.
I think it's all of us.
Yeah.
So funders in the room, you came here to meet and hear from these innovators. You're here looking for impactful ways to invest your philanthropic dollars, and tonight you heard about 8 of them. Tonight we want to ask each of you to set the intention that you will make the first move. You will make it as easy as possible for at least one of these innovators to start to build a meaningful relationship with you.
Yeah. So go out there, introduce yourselves, take a ton of pictures together, tag each other, untag each other, so you can remember who you are, again, things I struggle with, and set up a date. It takes time and effort these days to meet up, so let's make it happen.
And on behalf of everyone at Social Innovation Forum and the 8 incredible innovators, we want to thank you all for coming tonight. We can't wait to see you back here and to hear about the meaningful connections you created starting tonight.
Thank you, everyone.